Australia's declining living standards. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I'm working through my morning stein of coffee, and I thought we'd have a look at this article prepared by Jason Murphy for news.com.au, discussing the Australian recession. Our economy boomed and standards of living fell. Now, I've discussed something similar to this, or at least a decline in our GDP growth over the last few years, particularly since the GFC. Now, if we jump over here, you can see my Excel skills at play, which frankly have need a lot of work. Nonetheless, we can see here from the GFC 2008 moving forward, there's definitely been a decline in the trend of growth of our civilization. This black line here, which I will highlight, let's change to, we'll do it blue, blue is nicer. This black line here, which I'll highlight, its growth, that's our per capita GDP change, has gone down. And particularly since the GFC, since 2008, we have, most of our growth has been below trend. You can see here, 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 here. Most data points have been below trend. So what does that say? Well, as our population increases, the growth of our economy is slowing down, or isn't growing as fast. And now we're entering a recession. We've actually had a data point below, negative, below zero. So where will we put that down? We'll put that, a bit further down. Okay, this isn't working, but you know what I mean. Well, we're here about 0.5, so probably there. So we're heading down below. We're growing. And this just tells you, the growth that Australia's had, it's very dependent on migration coming over to the civilization. So we're actually we're still growing, but we tend to be growing worse. Our rate of growth is worsening. Our growth is slowing down. And I know some hippies will say, oh, we can't always have growth. It comes in cycles. You generally want your civilization to grow. Recessions, in some way, some creative destruction in a free market economy is a good thing, because it can create opportunities for new businesses to arise, new people to have the space to grow a business. You don't want everything to be crowded out. But that's required to build resilience, and we are in a post-resilience civilization, aren't we? Tough times need to be avoided at all costs. Little Johnny who's been covered in cotton wool his whole life can't even dare to experience tough times. It's always someone else's fault. So let's have a look at this article. For 30 years, Australia's economy has been the envy of the world, but this has come at an extremely high price for the average Aussie. Australia's economy was incredible. We were the world's economic hero as we notched up a record 3 decades of uninterrupted economic growth. It made us the glowing poster child for how to run a country, and officials from the IMF drooled all over us. But now it's over. I'd argue that a big portion of that is actually beyond our control. If we have a look, let's just look. I will bring up one of my favorite websites for you all to have a look at, the Observatory of Economic Complexity, and I'll log in to get access to the more up-to-date data. I recommend you all spend some time just playing on this website if you haven't. It's in some ways quite good, and in other ways a little depressing. The complexity of our civilization has tanked, and that is with regards to the complexity of what we manufacture, what we export. We don't have a manufacturing industry here. And I know many people are calling, Australia needs to focus on manufacturing. We don't have the economies of scale. We're not going to be able to compete with other civilizations. It's just that simple. This is why a lot of Australian businesses, a lot of brands, they try and hit bigger markets. They go for the US, they go for China to get in there, because just population numbers, guys. There's so many people over there. I know Lorna Jane, when we were working for them, they were pushing hugely to get over in the States, because the numbers. So you can see here, these are our exports: coal, iron ore, petroleum gas. Let's click on the coal briquettes. We can see here, this is where we're exporting our coal. Big portion to India, big portion to Japan, large portion to China and South Korea. So if these countries go into recession, there will be less demand for our natural resources. But also, we're just going to do a look up on coal itself to get an understanding of the complexity of this product. So you can see here, we're the top exporter in the world of coal, everyone. This is why all the hippies say, oh, our per capita carbon footprint is atrocious, because we export the most coal in the world. It's just that simple. But you've got to realize coal from Australian mines is going to release less. It's going to have a significantly reduced impact on the environment if it's burned in India as opposed to coal from Indonesia. It's just to do with the chemical composition of the coal. So, and all of it's going to be better than people burning dung and all of the health issues with that. But those are too complex issues. They don't want to focus on that. They don't want you to be thinking at that level. They want to keep you in your nice little box and use you for political purposes. Nevertheless, we can see here the complexity of our coal that we're exporting is negative 1.66. So it's ranked 963rd out of 1,018 in the world. Sure, you can have advanced machinery, but all of that's imported. You can get automation, but coal is a very old material. And it's interesting to look at some of the more ancient materials and the complexity of them. So you can see here we're partially dependent on natural resources which are not very complex. So a lot of our economic growth, it hasn't gone into advancing the complexity of our civilization. It's gone into housing. It's gone into property. And this is where a lot of people are concerned that they're going to do everything they can to chuck at housing. Everything. You saw in this video I did this morning, where they were proposing using your super, using this, using that. In some ways, I don't mind it. It's people's money. They should have access to use it to put a house over their heads. But it just shows you they're getting a little worried. So let's have a look at this. We're the IMF's poster child. But now it's over. A recession is here and our economy is shrinking. It's the perfect time to ask the following questions. What have we got to show for all that growth? Was it worth it? Would we do it all the same next time? Those are some very good questions. And it's good that Jason's being given the platform to ask these questions in a public sphere. We are certainly a lot richer as a country, as the next graph shows. Nobody disputes that. Over $2 trillion worth of economic activity flowed through our wide brown land in the last year. Far more than back in 1990 when we were on the brink of our last recession. There you go. But GDP is abstract. What do we actually have that's different? Well, we earn a lot more money. As the next graph shows, the average man is making 2.3 times as much money as in 94, and the average woman is making 2.4 times as much money as 90s or 94. You can see here, there we go. And I know every idiot who thinks this is a wage gap. It's not, okay? It's an earnings gap due to just people's different working habits, and frankly, there's a difference between men and women. It's called nature. That happens. And usually, when you're in a couple, you work together as a team anyway, so it doesn't matter. Seriously, it's only all the nutters that worry about this type of stuff. And sadly, a lot of them have infiltrated the Labour Party, so that kind of identitarianism is manifesting itself in Australian politics. So, but back to this. What are we spending it on? The answer is mostly our houses and things we put in them. In the 1990s, around the time of the last recession, Australians used to spend more on food than housing. Just think about that, guys. Just think about that. Now the situation is reversed, and is that good? Only to the extent that our houses are actually nicer than they were in the 1990s. The biggest growth area for spending since the last recession has been in household goods, gadgets, kitchen appliances, furniture, electronics, and rugs. And just think how many people are going into debt for these things. I just find it funny designing houses, looking at houses as an architect, when people spend a couple of grand per square meter, maybe 1,700 per square meter, depending on the quality of their house, the quality of the build, to store crap. to store rubbish, Oh, I need more storage space to put all my things. Oh, your $30 IKEA tree, so you'll spend, $4,000-5,000 making a cupboard or making a little storeroom for that to store that thing that costs $30. What's the payback time on that? We don't think like that, do we? Houses cost a lot more these days, and they're also a lot more comfy than they were in 1990. That's surely a true benefit for our standard of living. Perhaps, I'm living in a 100-year-old house that definitely isn't as comfy as some of the newer houses. An interesting thing is I've spoken to a lot of colleagues, professionals that have come over from Germany. They've immigrated over from Germany. And one thing they said, because over in Europe, the houses are designed much more sophisticated than here. Keeping the, essentially because of the winters, you want to insulate a box. You want to keep the cold out and keep the heat in. They've got double glazed windows, all these advanced systems. Even just looking at the construction detailing, it's much more sophisticated over there. And I had a colleague I worked with, he said he was never as cold in his entire life as when he moved to Australia, to Brisbane, to a subtropical environment, because just the buildings, the insulation was terrible, and the fabric of construction, the complexity of construction just let the heat get out. So he was freezing. And he thought that was quite funny. And, I remember we tried to detail some projects with some more sophisticated details from Europe, but there's no chance of that happening here. And I'm on the fence with regards to that. I think a bit of cold is good for you. Good for the circulation. Keeps you fit and healthy. And, the cold we have here in Queensland, I may bitch about it in videos. It's a bit of a joke, guys. Sure, you can get a little cold, but nothing a beanie on your head, particularly for me, and a jumper can't help. The second biggest growth area has been education. Australians are spending much more of their own money on education. Health spending is also up, which is to be expected. That shows up in the stats. Life expectancy has risen from 77 to 83 since the 1990s. We'll have to see how that keeps going. We will have to see how that keeps going. I think it'll start to creep down. It's already started going down in the US. And as our diet is very similar to the US, we've been steadily getting richer as a country, but it is important to be clear about what that means. Not every Australian has been getting richer all this time. A lot of Australia's growth came from getting bigger. There we go. Population growth. That is the other major difference compared to the 1990s. Australia's population, as the next chart shows, we've boosted population by 50% since then. And our population growth, as you can see in this chart, big portion of it has been from net overseas migration. It hasn't been from natural growth. And that has advantages and disadvantages. The advantages is that you bring, fully grown people in to come and hopefully work and contribute to your civilization straight away. The disadvantages is there is potential for culture shock and cultural issues as you're bringing people from more diverse cultural backgrounds together. And that just has to be managed. I would argue the best way to manage that is to allow open public debate and free speech so people can be critical and not be afraid of, getting the jackboot of the state down on you. So cultures can merge and evolve as they do throughout all of history. I think one of the biggest arrogances we have is to think that we're somehow smarter, better than people in the past, because we're just as dumb as we've always been. Maybe that just comes with the experience in getting older, hey, getting grayer in your beard. So that's a lot of new friends we can make, but it's also a lot more traffic on the roads. Well, yes, it puts a greater burden on our infrastructure, particularly potable water. It hasn't kept up with it. I know people are calling for desalination, this and that, but that's a lot of energy that's used. Population growth is good, but if we don't provide the infrastructure to accommodate it, it can be painful too. There are signs that Australia's economic growth has not been perfect. For one thing, we've been knocked off our perch on the top of the HDI, the Human Development Index. As the next chart shows, we now have several rivals for the best lifestyle and human well-being in the world. There you go. I'm not surprised. Those Norwegians in particular are beating us, despite having a recession during the GFC, which we dodged. Where is Sweden? Oh, I can't. There's no difference in this chart. It'd be interesting to compare Norway and Finland to Sweden. Because Sweden has, well, they've got a lot of demographic issues and cultural conflicts happening in their civilization at the moment, which are rendering some parts, which are causing people to flee certain parts of their nation to rural areas. And if you're interested in that, I suggest you look at some of the videos of Sanity in Sweden. She's one of the people that encouraged me, or inspired me, to start my own YouTube channel. So it goes to show being recession-free is not the only thing to worry about, and that's 100% true. I think we're going to pay a much worse price for not having that correction we needed in the GFC. The economy is made strong by hard work, but hard work isn't always associated with happiness. Nobody wants to live a life of drudgery, commuting to work and constantly worrying about job security. Life is about more than just work. And indeed, the data on happiness shows we are sliding. It goes back to 2005, so it doesn't capture the whole period since the last recession. But when you ask Aussies about their life satisfaction, they are less positive now than they were in 2005. And you can see here, well, yeah, we're going down. Where the UK shot up. That's strange. Maybe it could be Brexit. Maybe it could be Brexit. There's hope for the future. What's worse, we're now even less happy than the residents of gloomy old England. The United Kingdom pipped us for satisfaction in the last report. Now, I think a lot of people will take this time to just reflect on their life, to reflect on what they're doing, particularly if they've been forced house arrest, they've been in lockdown. And they might go, I don't like doing this commute, I don't like doing this job. I'm going to change. I'm going to look for something new. Sometimes you need to step away from the rat race, get off the treadmill. What's going to be sad is if some people can't, if some people are trapped now. If we have actually a big recession, we have property corrections, people are trapped into negative equity and working themselves to death. That's the sad thing. Australia will surely get through this recession and our economy will return to growth. But the numbers above should make us pause. If growth is partly to do with population growth, and we spend too much of that money making housing more expensive, it won't necessarily translate into higher happiness for individuals. We should be ready to do things differently next time. Grow the economy smarter and not just faster. And he makes a good point there. He definitely makes a good point. The problem is new money is created in housing in Australia pretty much. Every time you get a mortgage, new money is created. And then you've got the Catalan effect, where we get a housing bubble, and we have housing that just becomes, property prices just shoot up, and are unobtainable for a big portion of our civilization. You get to the point where two people need to work just to maintain a mortgage. And that declines in your happiness, declines in the quality of time you can have with your children, declines in people actually even wanting to have children. Then you've got decreased population growth, and what happens with that? You get decreased property growth, and it just keeps going and going and going. We'll have to see. I would argue Jason is right here. We definitely need to do things differently, and we need to think about alternative approaches to growing our civilization. I'd advocate for less government intervention, trying to experiment with some special economic regions around the nation to compare and contrast different models and approaches. I'm worried that there will be a push hard left, particularly with the younger generation that don't know what a recession is, that probably haven't prepared, only know good times, and are thinking it's all capitalism's fault and don't really know what they're talking about. What do you think, everyone? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support the content I create here, there are a few ways you can. You can simply share the content, help me beat the algorithms at YouTube, help the channel grow. You can support us financially via joining the channel on YouTube or Patreon for a small fee. You can also use our referral links at Amazon or eBay or Independent Reserve and Kucoin. We get a small advertiser's commission or a small trading commission that doesn't cost you anything. You can buy our merch from HeiseSays pocket squares you can see behind me, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next episode.